Before we begin, follow the instructions on the screen to grab this handout. It's the guide you can take with you and you can see and hold while we're talking. You'll be able to see the PowerPoints here and hear my voice and hold that handout in your hand. So hopefully that will hit one of your learning centers and be satisfying. We are strengthening some mental muscles today. Might feel new or different, a little uncomfortable. And I'm going to ask you to hold judgment for yourself and others lightly. Lean into your learning edge. Thanks for being here. I recognize all of you have expertise. Each of you in this room has had a moment where behavior pulled you completely off your game. You had the skills, the experience. All of a sudden, your body felt like it was hijacked. Welcome to Surprised but Steady, Handling Disruptive Individuals with Confidence. I'm Andrea. I created the Disruptive Individual Protocol. I didn't want to just survive disruptive moments and have them take up time. I wanted to be confident and steady in those moments so that my time was purposeful. Before we go any further, I want to be clear, this session is not about violence. It's about disruption. The kind that kicks up emotion, triggers meaning making, and tempts us to shut down, lash out, carry it home with us long after work. Disruption isn't always loud. Sometimes it's subtle, strategic, polite. What matters in this session is what disruption does to you, because how you feel in that moment creates your experience. I'm not calling anyone disruptive. I'm naming the internal shift that happens in us when the room changes. Working on this protocol and doing this work changed everything for me and my team. It gives language to the emotional labor that we carry and rarely name. The space between crisis and emergency and elation and celebration. I want to take you back to a moment that changed some things for me. I call this the patient's mother. I was caring for a 25-year-old patient in ICU, and her mom was present, and she was physically invading our space is what I was thinking. She was touching and lying on her daughter, and in my mind, preventing me from providing care and communicating effectively. The mother was speaking loudly, and in my opinion, was questioning my abilities and expressing distrust in policies. She said, I don't know who you think you are. You're not listening, and there's no way I'm going to follow any of these policies or anything that you say. And I will be here, and you are not to be trusted. I was very surprised by this, and I felt my body react, hair bristling and hair standing up on my arms, and I was angry. And I responded sharply. I said, you will have to leave when I say leave. You will not be here for cares. You're not helping, you're hurting, and she is her own person. You're not special and must follow all the rules. She demanded, get me your manager now. I want you fired and never come back in this room. I left the room. I cried from the emotion of it all, from the fear that I had harmed them and jeopardized my livelihood. I questioned myself. What is this? How did I do this? How can I make this right? How do I return to work after this? Did I let my colleagues down? And I judged the mom, the mother. I thought she's got to be drunk. She's wrong. She's not being a good parent. I was embarrassed for her. I believed she had to be better, to show up differently. And I told myself I would not tolerate this behavior. So that's one story I wanted to share. And now I want to flip the script. And I hope that this gets you thinking. While working as a travel nurse in a small rural hospital, I encountered a critical situation involving a patient who needed to be transferred. As we prepared for critical care, the nurse that was training me, I was still in training for the 3-day training. According to hospital protocol, certain procedures and medications were restricted to physicians. And in my previous role, all of this was routine. I was confident in my skills, insisted on proceeding. I challenged the protocol, asserting my expertise and knowledge. Caveat, no physical harm was done. At the end of that training day, I did tell that kind nurse who had been guiding me for 3 days that she lacked leadership qualities and couldn't comprehend my breadth of my practice. So I've been in both situations. These might bring up lots of ideas in your brain, and I hope that it does. And these experiences were building turning points for me. I realized that I was unprepared, untrained, and unskilled in handling such situations. And this led me to create Surprise and Steady Disruptive Individual Protocol. And I relied on this extensively during COVID in the ICU, as did my team. I'm not blaming myself for what happened. It happened as it had to happen. And what I found is that I was overwhelmingly supported and could be connected in many human ways with compassion. And I have no problem crying at work. And I understand now that my responses came from the primal part of my brain and not from intentional thought. I help individuals and teams do hard things without ever being hard on themselves. I help them find time, because when we're not sacrificing time to disruption, lots of things can change. We're at a point in the presentation now where everything changes. We're not here to decode someone else's behavior, to decode anyone else's behavior. We are here to understand our thinking, feelings, and self-care opportunities so that we can have the experience that we want. A mentor of mine always says, Andrea, self-care is what steadies in moments of surprise. So you can borrow that. More than 50% of people reported disruptive experience with a boss, patient, or client. And disruption isn't rare. It's the norm. It goes unnamed. For me, as you heard, disruption didn't just mean discomfort, it meant fear. Fear I'd lose my job, my credibility, my reputation. But if I didn't handle it perfectly, I'd pay for it. I hadn't yet been taught that I could turn those moments into connection, confidence, and steadiness. My reaction to mom's reaction was what was happening. These are your CEU learning objectives. Here's what that really means. We are here to shift how you experience disruption. You'll leave with tools that you can use to stay steady when things get surprising. Now we're shifting into the important learning points and where I want you to be able to see your handout. Thinking, the first point is mind and body, M and B, mind and body. Thinking is what drives emotional pain, drives surprise, disruption, confidence, even steadiness. Thinking is what creates our feelings. Our body knows before we recognize thinking, the gut punch, the tension, the freeze. It hits before you recognize that you are thinking. And then your mind kicks in. It kicks in with, they shouldn't be, they should know better, how can they? Those thoughts are what makes the moment feel surprising and disruptive, meaning making in our minds, mind and body. A feeling is always driven by a thought. I want to pause here to see if I can be clearer. Thinking, or mind and body, is exactly why the same behavior can rattle one person and roll off another. It's the meaning that each of us assigns. And the best news is that that's the part we can change, the meaning making, the thinking. Now we're going to talk about the second point on your handout, which is called the manual. This is another M and B. We've got first mind and body, and then we have manual and boundary, M and B. A manual is a rule book that you hold for how you want the world to operate around you, for how people should act, speak, or respond so that you can feel okay. Sometimes we hold it without even knowing it. It's about external behavior that you're trying to control for internal comfort. As you saw, I was struggling with mom, but what I was really struggling with was the unspoken rule that I wish that she was following. That's the manual. It's our own meaning making system. The thinking we default to, the rules we think we have to follow and others have to follow to be good, worthy, steady. It's challenging when we aren't aware of them, haven't shared them, don't routinely check in on them, and still expect the world to follow them without consent. Having this knowledge creates the confidence and steadiness in disruptive situations that we're talking about today. Here are some examples. They should answer my text right away. She should know I don't want to be interrupted when I'm working. My team should know to not bring drama. They should sit quietly in the hospital room. People are supposed to follow rules of hospitals. Also, on a personal note, I used to have a manual that said, husbands, make sure houses are clean before wives get home from work. And for years, that was a manual that I didn't share, didn't understand, and didn't know where the issues were coming from. But we can talk more about that in a little while. When people don't follow the manual that I had or that you have, we make it mean that they don't respect us, don't value us, or that we are failing or doing wrong. And really, we've had a manual that we didn't share. So I'm going to pause here to see if I can be more clear. The B of the second M and B is boundary. A boundary is a decision that you make ahead of time about what you will do to protect your energy, your time, or your values when someone else crosses a line that you set. It's true, it's thought that a boundary is about telling someone what not to do, but a real boundary isn't a command, it's a decision. It sounds like if X happens, I will do Y. Not, you can't talk to me like that. Rather, if you continue yelling, I'm going to end the conversation and exit the room. Boundaries are about your leadership, not their compliance. You don't need them to agree. You just need to be clear. And when you are, that's when your experience moves to confident and steady instead of surprised and disruptive. Why am I talking about manuals and boundaries? For a couple reasons. It helps you make sense of the situation. It helps you understand what happens when your mind and body are doing what they do. It gives you a reference point on how you will move forward. And the next thing we're going to talk about is self-preservation, but it gives self-preservation a job to do, a purpose. So I just want to pause here and see if I can be clearer. The next teaching point is self-preservation. This is a walkout, a regroup. This isn't about hiding. This is about choosing when and how you respond, which clearly we've heard I hadn't done in the past. That's the power of self-preservation. It's not an opt-out. It means you're being strategic about how you proceed. This is the move most people don't think they're allowed to make. That's a manual. We've been conditioned to power through, stay in the room, hold it all, manage the moment, no matter the cost. It's okay to leave the room, to go to the restroom, not slamming a door, not storming out, walking out, taking a breath. It's not weak. This could mean pausing a conversation. You regroup, reset, and you return and come back as the version of you who is confident and steady. Now we're going to talk about ask, don't tell. What that means is when you're self-preserving, you're going to ask questions of yourself. This is where the disruptive individual protocol shifts from reaction to intention. In a disruptive moment, your brain wants to grab the wheel that someone else has grabbed and wants control. So here's what you can control. Stepping away. Is this asking if this is a manual or a boundary? Understanding what your mind and body are doing. There's 3 questions for you. One is, what just surprised me? What am I feeling? And what do I want to experience right now? If and when you're ready to go back to the connection, to the situation, to the individual, you can ask, can we restart? And what do you need right now? Two questions, that's all for them. It will become apparent quickly if it is a manual or a boundary. If this is landing for you, my whole team needs this. It's not an accident. I work with facilities and teams on the disruptive individual protocol. So self-preservation and ask, don't tell are fluid steps that can be used in any part of the protocol. The protocol always starts with mind and body. And the thing you're always deciding is this a manual? Is this a boundary? Is this an operating instruction manual that's different from the person that I'm talking with? And I have the space to connect here. Or is it something that you will then do when someone does what they do? What I help facilities and teams with is to then set a boundary and then understand how to carry it through the entire team so that everyone feels supported. And that's something that we can talk about after this presentation. So now let's break into 6 groups of 4, and we're going to just lighten the mood a little bit and lighten what we're doing. And if you have a pen and paper, or if you want to do this on your phone, here's the question. And I'll give you 2 minutes. List everything your best friend should just know or should never do. Now that you have that done, go ahead and share amongst your groups and talk about what you think about this and what you know about it. I'll give you 2 minutes for that. So I'm wondering, does anyone want to share what they discovered? And what are your unspoken rules or your manuals about your family or about work? So before we end, I want to just take a pause and see if we are all clear on mind and body. And I also want to make sure that we're clear on manual and boundary, and we can discuss those in because this matters. And if you miss this distinction, you'll continue trying to enforce your manual, and it will feel like you're not getting any traction, and that's when things will start to feel disruptive. So let's just lock this in. A manual is what you want them to do. A boundary is what you will do. Are we all clear on that? So please scan and tell me what landed, tell me what helped, and what you'll use. You're already doing this work because you showed up here today. And if you're ready to go deeper in, let's talk about what kind of coaching could work for you. We can definitely meet in the hall after this presentation. Here's what I want you to leave with, and what I'll end with is that disruption is part of life, but being wrecked by it doesn't have to be the case. When you know how to use the disruptive individuals protocol, you can regulate your emotion and choose your response to have a confident and steady experience. And that also provides that for the person that you're connecting with. That's what today was about. And this is what I help healthcare leaders, pros, and teams do in real time. So now, for the last 10 minutes, I would like to open it up to any questions or reactions that you want to bring forward before we close.